pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome. We're going to try and go through do a bit of a speed meeting because we have a presentation tonight to the City Council for our budget. So, first off, approval of minutes of March 11, 2025. Can I have a motion to approve, please?
I make a motion to approve the board minutes from the meeting of March 11th, 2025.
Could I have a second?
Second.
Second by Greg. Any changes anyone has? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous?
No, I abstain.
No,
I
you
wasn't
abstain?
here.
Oh, you weren't here, okay. 4-0. 4 approve, 1 abstention. Okay, next item, recognition awards.
Okay. Antonio Rivera from Quantic, and can we have the special education teacher that Kathy? So Cassie Bradford, special education teacher at Waquanic, and she wrote this for Antonia. So come on up. Get to be on camera. The key is me. I am nominating Antonia Rivera, a grade 3 teacher from Waquanic School, for the Key is Me Award. Antonia makes sure that her students feel welcomed and loved from the second they step foot in her classroom. She creates a family environment and is very patient and caring. She has very high expectations for all of her students and works hard to make sure they get whatever they need in order to help make them successful. She always looks for resources to support her students and celebrates all accomplishments, no matter how small, even of past students who always want to go show her what they are doing well on. Antonia makes sure that her students feel heard and know they are an active and important part of her classroom family. She finds creative ways to make learning fun, and her inclusive classroom is always full of love and learning and is a great place to be. Although I'm not able to work with her this year, whenever I step foot into her classroom, I can feel the love that she has for her students and that they have for her. I Make a Difference, Nikki Ross. She's got a fan club over there too. So this is, she was nominated at Global by Shivani Sweeney, who's a special education teacher at Global. I would like to nominate Miss Nikki for the I Make a Difference Award in recognition of her exceptional contributions as a special education paraeducator at Teachers Memorial Middle School. Her unwavering dedication to our students is not only commendable, but also life-changing for many children and families. Nikki consistently displays a remarkable ability to connect with students who face unique challenges. Her compassion and understanding create a safe and welcoming environment where students feel valued and empowered to learn. She has an innate talent for recognizing individual needs and tailoring her approach to ensure that every child receives the support they require to thrive academically and socially. One of the most impactful aspects of Nikki's work is her capacity to foster independence in her students. Through her patient and encouraging demeanor, she empowers them to develop essential life skills, ultimately enhancing their self-esteem and confidence. She is a strong advocate for special education, and she fosters a sense of belonging and respect for all individuals, regardless of their differences. In conclusion, Ms. Nikki's tireless efforts, compassionate nature, and unwavering commitment to her students make her a deserving candidate for this award. Her profound impact on the lives of children in our district deserves to be publicly recognized, not only celebrating her contributions, but also inspiring others to follow in her footsteps. You inspire me. Is Angelica Brito here? She was nominated by Ed Lavoie, the principal at Global. I am pleased to nominate Angelica Brito for her recognition for her exceptional dedication and commitment to enhancing our school community. She has been an invaluable volunteer member of the Commissioner Network Committee, where her contributions have significantly impacted the development and success of our school programs. In addition to her work with the Commissioners Network, she has taken on a leadership role within our parent-teacher organization. She has worked tirelessly to organize wonderful events for her students, including the Winter Dance and the Book Fair, both of which have been met with great enthusiasm and appreciation from students and parents alike. What sets her apart is her ability to consistently come up with creative and thoughtful ideas to improve our school environment and the experiences of our students. Whether it's through event planning, volunteering, or offering suggestions for new initiatives, she is always thinking about how she can make a positive impact. Her passion for creating meaningful experiences for our students is truly inspiring. Beyond her many contributions, she is simply an amazing person. She approaches every task with energy, positivity, and a genuine desire to make our school a better place for everyone. Her dedication to our community has not gone unnoticed, and I can think of no one more deserving of recognition for her hard work and commitment. Thank you for considering this nomination. Angelica's impact on our school community is immeasurable, and I am confident she will continue to make a difference for years to come. Our unending appreciation and thanks, Mr. Lavoie.
So I just wanted to thank Principal Lavoie for this. I am truly grateful, and I want to shout out on behalf of Teachers Global PTO for giving me the platform and the opportunity to share ideas, because they were so welcoming that I was given this opportunity to express and give back to the students who do deserve it. They need to know what they deserve is great, and there are great opportunities out there for them, and this was just the first step. So thank you again. Yay.
Can we do the volunteer of the month?
That was.
Oh.
Did he inspire me? Wasn't here.
Oh,
So we'll do
okay.
that next time.
And now we have the happenings in the middle schools. If the students from Kelly and from Global could come up, please.
So Jared is going to represent both middle schools today?
Okay.
Where can I sit?
Just sit by the microphone. Just give your name and the school you're giving the report on.
My name is Jared Palomino Flores. I am from Global Middle School. Sadly, Rivers just isn't here today. So I'll be reading both schools' happenings. So beginning with Kelly. April 4th, 20 of their 8th grade girls attended a Multiply Your Options conference at UConn. The purpose of this conference is to hear from the professors and professionals in the STEM fields to expose young women to career options they may have not considered. Another thing, their track and field season is now in session. Middle school students participated in a district-wide and then regional Geography Bee. One of their students, being Rivers, qualified to compete in the National Geography Bee. On May 8th, Kelly will be hosting their spring marketplace and open house for incoming fifth grade students. Join them for spring market featuring plant sales, craft vendors, and food trucks, and help support their local businesses and enjoy a fun-filled evening of shopping and community connections. And flyers will be out soon. Now, for Global, this past weekend, 3 of our students competed in the CT Regional Geography Bee, with Rash Veer Bath coming in 5th place overall in 6th grade and qualifying for nationals. Our volleyball team continues to have success this season. We will conclude this Friday with our annual staff and student volleyball game after school. As well, speaking of sports, our track and field has also begun today. Our spring paint night is Wednesday from 5:45 to 7:45 which helps spark creativity and strengthen connections in the community. Speaking of that volleyball versus staff, that will be Friday from 3:30 to 6 o'clock, and is always a great time to, and it was just always a great time. The PTO movie night is going to be April 23rd from 5 to 7:30, and families will be watching the movie Wonka. And finally, Global will be hosting an open house for incoming sixth graders on May 19th from 5:30 to 7 o'clock. This event eases the transition to middle school, builds excitements to the students, and helps families and students feel welcome, informed, and confident about coming into the school year. That's all.
right. Thank you very much.
Can you guys give the date for the open house and spring market?
May 8th.
May 8th, thank you.
What was that?
May 8th. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that's 4 to 6 p.m.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, and then we'll break for a few minutes to take some pictures in the hall of the award recipients, and then we'll be right back. All right, I just have a brief statement to read before. Norwich Board of Education values the public comment period as it represents an opportunity for members of the public to express their views to the board on matters within the board's authority. Procedurally, public comments will be limited to 3 minutes per person and up to 30 minutes per topic. Comments may be consolidated and be given by a group spokesperson. All comments must be directed to the board and not to any individual board member or individual member of the administration. The board and the administration will not respond to questions or engage in dialogue during the public comment period. The board and administration will determine when and how to address questions that arise during the public comment period. Comments may be submitted via email or in writing at any time. Profanity, raised voices, boisterous conduct, and personal animosity will not be tolerated and may result in the suspension of that individual's speaking privilege. The chair reserves the right to limit public comment at any time so that the board's business may be conducted in a timely manner. Each speaker is asked to give their name and address for the record before starting their remarks. You may proceed.
Kristen Talley, 205 McKinley Avenue Extension. I'm here again with my activist hat on. Last time was to disrupt the hateful rhetoric and lies perpetrated by this board against immigrants, migrants, and refugees. Tonight, I'm here to disrupt the bias that resides within your budget choices. I ask you to consider your budget and staffing choices through the lens of a children's book entitled The ABCs of Activism. Do your staffing and budget decisions provide A for access or A for adversity? B for Black and brown brilliance or B for bias and bigotry? C for cultural competence or C for cultural assault? D for diversity or D for discrimination? E for equity or E for exploitation, elimination, and erasure? F for fairness or F for fraud? G for growth or G for gaslighting? H for honor or H for hindrance? I for inclusion or I for implicit bias? J for justice or J for just a mess? K for kindness or K for Karen and Ken? L for LGBTQ plus love or L for limitations? M for multilingualism or M for mandates? N for neotricism or N for nepotism? O for opportunity or O for oppression? Because all I see is P for patterns, P for privilege, and P for performative allyship. Last year, you accepted a decision to eliminate the equity director. Last year, you demoted the multilingual learner director. You downsized the amount of special education supervisors. You also downsized the amount of reading and math specialists. This year, some school counselors, some deans of climate and culture, as well as all of the multilingual learner instructional specialists were eliminated. You can blame it on the budget, but the choices send a clear message about what this district values. Your students deserve to be safe and thrive. Your staff deserves to be safe and thrive. Your families deserve to be safe and thrive. Your policies and pre-written statements are just words and only matter when matched with action. When your marginalized students, staff, and families are under attack, you stand up and you fight back.
Thank you. And the next person signed up, Amber?
Elaine Dolan.
I'm Eileen Dolan, 4 Philan Drive, Norwich.
Okay.
Eileen, you gotta talk closer.
Okay. Good evening, my name is Eileen Matthews Dolan. I'm a retired Norwich Public Schools teacher, having taught 10 years in the elementary schools and 10 years here at Kelly Middle School. Thank you, board members. These are desperate and chaotic days in America. I feel compelled to speak out. That's why I'm here tonight. I'm here to vent. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, that is what makes America great. All of us know too well that even before a child is born, the cards they are dealt with are uneven and unfair. Some of our children are born into wealthy, healthy families with every opportunity for success, while many others have the disadvantages of poverty, having a learning or physical disability, knowing only a foreign language, dealing with racism or sexism, and so on. DEI policies aim to level that playing field. Here in Norwich, we have more low-income students than many Connecticut towns and rely more heavily on federal grants. We learned Friday that the federal government has frozen $14 million in funds earmarked for Connecticut school districts. Norwich schools cannot afford to lose federal funds due to an illegal, immoral, and racist policy from the Republican administration. Every person in this room who cares about children knows this is true, and budgets reflect values. Picture this in my 7th grade classroom. Students are just returning from a vacation week, telling friends how they spent their days off. Several went to Disney World. Anthony, whose father is a doctor, said he went to the islands again. Then they visited prospective colleges for his sibling. Listening to all of this is Jacob, an English language learner with a learning disability. His single mother works full-time to pay her bills, so Jacob had to care for his 3 siblings for his vacation. The only trip they made was to the soup kitchen and food pantry on Saturday. Jacob is glad to be back at school where he'll get the help from his teacher and paraprofessional, see the school social worker, and he and his siblings will get enough to eat today. They will have ready access to the school nurse for their asthma, and thanks to an after-school program, Jacob will get more academic help. Jacob knows his school cares about him. He knows he's valued and supported. The school provides help that he and his family desperately need. So much of this help comes under the heading diversity, equity, and inclusion. What part of that help isn't important? As school board members, you understand the importance of attending school events. More important than events, I hope that you would make the time to visit a variety of classrooms at least a few hours each month. Not only will classroom visits help to inform your decisions, but you will certainly be assured of the value and necessity of the DEI policies. My hope is that this board will do everything in its power to protect school staff and students from the cuts to DEI. The time for pushback is now. When I think of the children and families who will suffer from these cuts, it is hard not to feel shame as an American. Thank you.
Was there anyone else signed up, Amber?
No.
Would anyone else like to speak for public comment? Would anyone else like to speak for public comment? And would anyone else like to speak for public comment? I now declare public comment closed. Now it's the report of the chair. Welcome. We're celebrating National Assistant Principals Week. Do we have assistant principals in the room? If they could stand, please, to be recognized. It's also the week of the young child, so we're celebrating all of our preschoolers. And it's also the month of the military child, so anyone that has military parents. And National Library Workers Day. Help our students and staff in their selection of wonderful books. Also on this day, the United States Senate passed a civil rights bill in 1960 regarding discrimination in voting procedures. Also, in August of 1957, Senator Strom Thurmond gave a 24-hour and 18-minute speech against an earlier civil rights bill, which did eventually pass. This 68-year record was recently exceeded by Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, who gave a 25-hour and 5-minute impassioned speech in the Senate in opposition to President Trump's recent actions. On behalf of the Board of Ed, I apologize for some remarks that were made during a discussion on how this district will handle potential ICE visits. Sometimes some offensive language was used, but I encourage members to openly express themselves so that the board may hear all sides of an issue. I did not realize that those remarks were not self-censored enough, and I should have gavelled the remarks to keep the conversation civil. These are trying times, uncertainty is abundant, and we all need to be mindful of each other's feelings. We will try to do better. We, as your elected representatives on this board, should always respect the citizens who have elected us. So please forgive us. The activities that I attended this past month included the opening of the Norwich Public Schools Loft, which is located at the Bishop School. There they have clothing, school, house, and personal supplies. Please call the district for an appointment to visit that area. I also attended the All-City Music Concert, which included choral and instrumental performances. We had the meet and greet of our new superintendent, Susan Lassard, and also the Norwich Public School Talent Show just last week. Tonight at 8 o'clock, we'll be presenting our budget to the City Council. In 2 days, on April 10th, we'll have the Autism Wellness event here at Kelly from 5 to 7 p.m. And on the 14th, there'll be the UCFS Food Fair at Stanton from 9 to 11 a.m. Some local events, we do have students that went through the Norwich Public Schools and they attend Griswold High School. They'll be staging the musical Godspell April 23rd through 25th at 7 p.m. On April 30th, there'll be the grade 3 through 5 spelling bee from 6 to 7:30. Do you know what school that's at, Susan?
For the spelling bee?
Yeah.
Does anybody know? I believe it's right here at Kelly, right? Kelly Middle School.
Okay.
Excuse me, what was the date on that again, Mark?
That is April 30th.
Time?
And May 1st through 3rd at NFA, again, one of our designated high schools, they'll be staging the musical Bye Bye Birdie. And those performances are for 7 o'clock at Slater Auditorium on the NFA campus. On May 15th, we have the Norwich Transition Academy open house from 5 to 7 p.m. on K Street. And on May 21st is the All-City Art Show from 5 to 6:30 p.m. here at the Kelly Gym. Finally, I'd like to extend my congratulations to the Yukon Women Huskies for winning their 12th National Division I basketball title. And also to Coach Gino Oriema, who's guided the Huskies to the most titles for either the men's or women's game. He also becomes the oldest coach to win a national title at the age of 71. And that concludes my report. Susan?
Thank you. All right, I'm gonna try to go as fast as possible, knowing that we have to get out of here to scoot over to the city council meeting. I'll start with volunteer update. You can all read that on the board docs. I'll just say that we went from 115 volunteers and last month, and in a month's time, we're already up to 129. You can see the list of certified staff vacancies that are on there that we're still filling. As usual, there's a lot of science and math and our special education teachers. I will talk a little bit about transportation. Maria Perillo has something in there. She did send me an email. We are doing the opt-in, as everybody knows, for all of the schools, including NFA and also Norwich Tech. So we have them all from our elementary and middle schools. Norwich Tech responses, according to NFA, they have 577 families that have not responded. So Maria asked both of them to send it out again for those that didn't respond, and that will happen right after spring vacation. So we'll hope to get more, and that will help us with our conversation with First Student once we get all that data. I will now do a budget update for everyone. I'm going to give you my budget presentation that I'm also going to be doing at City Council tonight, and I'll go through it as quickly as possible. Bob will chime in on some slides. So I thought I'd start off this year because we always get hold on a second. So we'll start with this, the budget process and meeting dates. We met 3 times, sorry. January 28th, we met by Zoom. We talked about district fuel, tuition, historical view, transportation, special education contracted services. On February 10th, we met and we spoke about facilities, technology, and then tuition, special education, transportation, and fuel. On February 19th, we met and we spoke about salary, fringe benefits, and the budget summary. And then on March 12th, the Board of Ed approved our budget of 4.95%. So this year, I started out as inevitably, when we get to the City Council meeting, they'll always ask, what about the scores? So that's one of their questions. So I can't put all assessments up there. So what I did do for this is we put all the dibbles up here from K through 5. And our students are growing at a higher rate than other students across the country in terms of their early literacy skills. For example, letter ID, fluency, decoding, comprehension. More than 20% of our student population is making above average growth. This is a nationally normed and state-approved assessment. So when you look at this, this is for grade K. Obviously, the top one is for the beginning of the year, BOY's beginning of the year, 24-25. And then we have middle of the year. So we still have the end of the year, and you can just look at the growth here. Obviously, we want to move the red. We want to shrink the red as much as possible and gain in the yellow, green, and blue. So I'm gonna quickly go through these slides. Jamie will go through these at the end of the year as well with Ashley Eichhorn, our curriculum coordinator. But just so you can get a little sense of all the hard work that's going on in our district. This is grade 1. Oops. I didn't do that. What happened? Grade 2. Joe, are you doing this to me?
No. Grade 1?
Can you, it's not working well. Can you hit it for me?
Yeah.
Thank you. So grade 2. Notice the red shrinking, and remember, we still have a whole rest of the year to go for our end of year. Grade 3. Grade 4. Then grade 5. So we'll continue to work on this for the end, and hopefully Jamie will be pretty excited for the end of the year results. Good, Joe. All right, so a budget overview. Our current budget for 24-25 was $95,680,898. Our proposed budget for this year is $100,420,901. That was an increase of $4.7 million. That includes tuition increases for NFA and Griswold, which we'll get to. That percentage increase, like I just mentioned, is 4.95%. For every 1%, it equals $956,809. For our Governor's Alliance proposed increase, we should be getting about $2 million, and that's 2.16%. That would bring us down to 2.79% for overall budget, or $2.6 million. Our excess cost funding options, so this is the one that we go through every year, and we would love to get fully funded. That hasn't happened. We were supposed to get 91%, as you know, last year, and this year We really don't know. We'll decide these at our ad hoc meetings that will be at the end of April. We'll be having these discussions on what we should put in there. Bob and I talked about this. I originally had in there conservatively, we put in 78% for 25, 26, but we're thinking it's not so conservative. Where did Bob go?
I'm over here
there
where
you
the
are.
microphone is.
It's not so So it's not so conservative anymore. We really don't know. That's what we have in the budget now, but we'll talk more about what we really did receive for this, even with the governor's $40 million. It still went up $10 million for special education, so we really got less, and we'll talk about that in a couple slides. So the reduction assumption, if Alliance increase happens, we would be down, we'd have to be at a deficit of 1.7 with the certified staff reductions. You'll see that on slide 17. That's a little over $1 million. So with total deficit with certified reductions, right now would be $627,491. So there's the pie chart. Give me a second to, whoop. Can you go back, Joe, please? There we go.
So the top 5 items in that chart represent about 90% of our budget.
Okay, Joe. But this is Bob's 2 slides.
Yep, the microphone is on. So Susan mentioned some of these items, but I'm going to expand on them a little bit more in detail. As we all know, special education costs continue to rise not only in Norwich, but across the entire state. When it comes to the excess cost grant reimbursement grant, the district, like all districts, file our initial report in December 1st, and that's what our estimated reimbursement is based on. We then update the information on March 1st. So based on the March 1st statewide update, the entire pool of special ed costs that qualify increased by $10 million. That was the $10 million that Susan referred to. So what that caused to happen, prior to taking into consideration the $40 million adjustment that the legislative body approved, our reimbursement rate was at the 64.19%, if you remember. That increase of $10 million shrunk the available money available to districts, and it caused our reimbursement rate to drop to 62.02%. So it dropped another 2%. So what does that mean for us from a budget standpoint? Fortunately, the decrease in the dollars we're receiving was just under $1,400, so it doesn't have huge impact. But that causes concern for next year because the next year's budget assumes a 78% reimbursement rate, but that was based on the 64.19% that we thought we'd be getting, which is now 62%, and assumption that the $40 million that was approved for this year wouldn't be taken away for next year. So that's a budget risk. Will that $40 million stay? We also learned that we won't find out until early June if the amount we're expecting from that $40 million will really be $479,000. So we won't know that until June, and that will impact our year-end balance. So it's the delayed in receiving the funds and the waiting game that causes us concern, and that will have impact on what we should budget for next year in terms of excess cost reimbursement. So then the big question is, will there be legislative relief? There are several bills in the legislative body that would fund excess costs fully at 100%. If that were to happen, what would that mean for Norwich? If it were funded fully this year, we'd be getting $1.3 million more than at the 62% level. So it's huge, it's impactful. There are also adjustments to the ECS formula, but since we last met, there have been no formal proposals coming out of the Appropriations Committee or the Democratic or Republican caucuses. Right now, the only thing we have is the governor's budget. All of these proposed bills are sitting in committee right now or in the public hearing process. So it's the continued game of waiting. So as Susan mentioned, the ECS grant through the Alliance grant is scheduled to go up by a little over $2 million by the governor's budget. We're hopeful that that happens. There are 71 towns that are scheduled to get increases based on the formula, and those are all the large cities: Hartford, New Britain, Wallingford, Meriden, Norwich. There are 81 towns that are scheduled to get decreases. There is a bill in the legislative body to hold towns harmless that are scheduled for a decrease. So then if that happens, the question becomes, where does the money come from to hold them harmless? 3 years ago, we were scheduled to get a $1.3 million increase in the Alliance grant, and it was reduced to a little over $900,000 because the legislative body took money away from those scheduled to get an increase and allocated it to the decreased towns to hold them harmless. So that's a risk. At this point, we're hopeful it doesn't happen. There's also a bill, House Bill 5823, sponsored by Darrell Wilson and Senator Austin, to allocate $2 million to Norwich Public Schools for early child care. We hope we get that, or at least get a portion of it. That would be very impactful. There's a change in the school readiness funding formula for next year. Our director of that program, Corey Beckwith, is following that and working through the mathematics to see what that would mean to the district from a financial impact. Health insurance, we don't know the final cost of what that will be yet. The city, myself and NPU and Susan had a meeting with our broker. We received a final renewal from Anthem. Our budget right now contains a 15% increase. Right now, the allocation rates for premiums are coming in at 16.86%. We're trying to see what we can do to reduce that cost to the district and our employees. Susan and I have a meeting with the city and our broker on Friday. We had a meeting a week ago, so we're seeing what can be done to help that impact item. Transportation, Susan already touched on. We had requested a meeting with them and their senior leadership to happen before today. That hasn't happened yet, so we're still trying to get that scheduled. So that's pretty much the update on where we stand from a legislative standpoint and what items are out there that could have both a positive and negative impact on our budget.
There's another slide, good. Do you want to talk about that? Do you want to talk this one, Bob, or you want me to do this?
Oh, I can do it.
Susan, have we had any more expressed interest in Rose City from any of the surrounding towns?
Yes, and Lisa will speak to that when
Okay.
she shares her special education, but yes, we have had other students come from outside of Norwich.
Alrighty.
Yeah, and I can briefly go over these. Some of these I've already touched upon. So to get to the 4.95, we did make adjustments to the budget. When we originally went through the committee, it was, I believe, at 5.5%. Some of those adjustments were related to the excess cost reimbursement when we found out the $40 million was passed by the legislative body. We also increased the revenue both for Rose City School and NTA based on student enrollments. If you recall, when Rose City School started in September, we had 2 students. January, it grew to 9 students. Those 9 students represented a little more than $661,000 in terms of direct cost savings and cost avoidance. A direct cost savings would have been a student who was in our outplacement budget, say at Bradley, for a cost of $80,000 or $90,000. That student was brought back. Of the 9 students, I believe we had 5 or 6 of students that fit into that category. So if Rose City School were not in existence, we would be paying Bradley or the learning. Lisa can help me with, what was the other school besides Bradley?
Green Valley.
Yeah, Green Valley. We would be paying tuition for those students. So that's real direct savings. The other 2 students, I believe, were cost avoidance, where they were identified as needing an outplacement, but they were able to come to Rose City. And then we have tuition-paying students from, I believe, Griswold is the town. They'll be paying tuition for the balance of the year. In next year's budget, it's anticipated to add 2 middle school classrooms. So if we are able to get some more tuition from out-of-town placements, that'll help offset expenses for our budget. I already talked about the excess cost reimbursement. The assumption is that it's not going to be taken away, so we're following that legislation very closely. We've talked about the Alliance and ECS funding. Oh, there is one bill that I didn't mention. It's House Bill 5545. It does not impact our Board of Ed operating budget, but Senator Austin has sponsored a bill to allocate $5.5 million to make structural and building improvements to the adult ed program at Hickory Street. And as we know, the session is scheduled to end, I believe, on the first week of June. So most likely, by charter, the city has to make a formal, the latest they can approve a budget is midnight on the second Monday in June. They'll target a preliminary final approval the first week. They can always go back and wait another week to make a final approval. The latest we've done a budget since I've been here was at 9:37 p.m., basically 2 hours and 23 minutes before the deadline. Any questions on those two slides?
I'd just like to comment that the main grant, the ECS grant of $32 million hasn't changed. That has remained flat for the past, I think something like 12 years.
2011 was how that
13
was
years.
been fixed, and that's been by the rules of the legislative body. Any increases have to flow through our alliance portion, so the whole formula needs to be readjusted. And I will add that there is a bill that would increase the foundation amount, which is used to calculate the ECS grant. Right now, in round numbers, it's $11,500 per student. The increase per student is a little over 900, I think $953. If that piece were to happen, that would mean roughly $4 million more for Norwich. There's also 4 or 5 contributing factors where it's based on certain percentages, and they deal with the number of ELL learners you have, the poverty level, income levels, and the percentages might be scheduled to go up from 25 to 35%, 35 to 45%. So if any of those happen, it would factor greatly in assisting Norwich from a financial standpoint, because we score highly, if that's the right term, in all of those categories. Might not be a good thing to be in those categories, but from a financial standpoint, we would benefit. I doubt if every one of those things would happen at 100%. If they happened at 100% level, it would add $11 million to us, and we wouldn't be sitting here having budget conversations. But if 20% of it happens, that's a good thing. So we'll keep you posted on those legislative actions as they happen.
So the final thing is, if the city grants us the 1% that they've promised, maybe a little more, we get our alliance funding of over $2 million, and something wonderful happens to make up that 1.7 million from the state, we'd be in excellent shape. We wouldn't have to let anybody go, or very few people at that, and we could meet our budget goals.
That's true, and my biggest risk factors for me are keeping the ECS Alliance grant, $2 million, not losing any of that, and not losing the additional $479,000 in excess costs that we're anticipating for this year.
What concerns me is your report, the budget report for this year, looking at just the one item of special ed services, that's already exceeded budget. It's coming in at 138%.
And that's, a lot of that is driven by increased costs in those areas, but some of it is also transferring costs from the tuition line item over to the special service line item where they really belong. So it's a mixture of both. That, if you look, you also see a big decrease in some of the outplacement costs from a budget standpoint. And we used to receive some bills from some districts that included the tuition and services in one bill, and that entire amount was being coded to tuition. To be more accurate, we've spiked out the services to put it in the service line item. So it makes it a little cleaner as far as understanding what we're spending our money on.
So with 3 months going to the end of the school year, we still have the unknown of special ed. I mean, 4 or 5 students move into the district could blow our budget completely off track.
Well, that's true, but with each passing day, it becomes less impactful if a new student moves in. You know, it's easy to do a year-end forecast in June.
Right. All right. Anything further?
Good, Joe. All right, so just to recap, tuition's 38.8%. NFA gave us a 3.7% increase. Griswold was at 3.5%. Our special education outplacements, we have 111 students outplaced. That's costing over $9 million. But this is also a decrease by 1.8 from 24-25. And then Bob already touched on the excess costs, the tiered legislation. So I'm gonna go back and remind everyone where we were last year. And people remember this graph that was up there. And we remember that ESSER 3 ended and we had to cut a lot of staff members that were in that grant and also off of the Board of Ed grant, the Board of Ed line. So in 23-24 for instructional coaches for ELA, math, SEL, we lost 4 due to that. Our reading and math specialists, we went down 24. MLL coaches, we didn't touch any last year, nor TESOL MLL teachers. We didn't touch special education teachers. We did lose 2 music teachers, library a loss of 1, PE 1, 5 school counselors, 2 social workers, and we lost, we decided not to go with pen pals. And administrative positions, assistant principals at the middle school, we eliminated 4. At the elementary level, 1, and special education supervisors, we eliminated 3. So just a summary, that's how many positions that we had to eliminate last year due to ESSER funds ending and our Board of Ed line. Central office eliminated positions last year. This is last year. We did not replace an admin assistant in HR who resigned. We did not replace the volunteer position who resigned. We eliminated student services office manager. We eliminated 1 residency officer. We eliminated the payroll manager. We replaced the director of communications with a communications coordinator and combined responsibilities with the volunteer position. We hired a part-time Medicaid admin assistant to replace a full-time admin assistant who left. And we moved 3 admin directors to coordinator positions, which went from 12 months to 210 days. Additional staff reductions for next year. This is what I said about the $1+ million. So 3 dean positions, 3 MLO coaches, 2 moving to MLL teaching positions, 1 to an elementary teaching position, 2 elementary school counselors, 2 social workers. There's still a possibility of eliminating some non-certified positions once we know more, have more information on the budget. Other savings from attrition, we had 2 teacher retirees, 5 paras by attrition. So our historical average para attrition over the summer is about 13. So we feel comfortable with 5 by attrition. The good news is Rose City School savings, when we add 2 middle school classrooms, that we're approximating about $200,000 in savings for adding those 2 middle school classrooms. So here's the big, when I said that we would come back to this, NFA and Griswold tuition increase. When we were told to expect a flat budget, and we knew we had to be careful this year. We also know even with 1%, the city manager said last night, that still would not get us even the increase from the tuitions for both NFA and Griswold. So again, even with 1%, it will not cover the tuitions that we have no choice on. which means that we further have to reduce pre-K to 8 because of that. So total NFA 24-25, $27 million. The total NFA for 25-26 is 29.4, and that's 2.6 increase of our overall budget. NFA special education, we take that out of that, that's an increase alone of $1.4 million. Total Griswold regular education is an increase of $278,588, and then their special education program, it'll be an increase of $333,929.
Do we have a larger number of students moving up? Because those are
Can you
just
go back, Joe?
very large percentage increases if we have the same number of students moving up.
Yes, we do. That's what happens.
I can talk about the NFA special ed piece. When we did last year's budget at this time, in the spring, there were a total of 224 students budgeted. We get billed based on the October census, and then it gets adjusted again in February. The actual count rose to 236, so there was an increase of 12 students, and most of them were in a higher price program, the Atlas program. When we got inside the numbers with Lisa's department and NFA, we found out there was actually 35 new students to the program. They came from 11 different cities and towns within Connecticut and 6 different states. I think the furthest state was Montana. With 35 new students, if you look, the net increase was only 12. That meant 23 students who we thought were going to be here ended up leaving. So NFA special ed, that's how NFA's number got to be so large at the $1.4 million. Griswold, they had more students also in the special ed program, and they went up $278,000. It was about a $330,000 increase over the budget. NFA also next year, we're billed 1 year in arrears. It goes on October, the census is from October 1st of this year. There were 12 more students who were in NFA this year than the previous year. So we're adding just under $200,000 to next year's budget in regular education. And you marry that with a 3.7% increase, that's how it got up to be so high.
Thank you.
Good, Joe. And then finally, the last slide, I just want to remind everyone of our Norwich Public Schools enrollment. So in our pre-K through 8, it's 3,228 students, but we're also responsible for all the students in the high schools, and that's another 2,086. So we're responsible for tuitions there, and also our special education students, we're responsible for all of them.
Plus, we provide transportation for the charter school and the parochial schools in town.
So, you know, again, I want to reiterate that we were told to expect a flat budget. We heard yesterday 1%, and I'll remind everyone that doesn't even cover the tuitions that we have no control over. And these are difficult times, and the difficult reality is that we have difficult decisions to make, and this is the nature of the fiscal reality. I wish it were different. I really wish that were the case, but it's just not. Anybody have any further questions? All right, next I'm gonna quickly have Corey, our pre-K early coordinator, if she could come on up. And she's going to give a brief update on pre-K. There's a lot of stuff going on in pre-K.
Do you have the clicker?
I do. It doesn't really work well, but.
I'll try it. Zach, you want this?
Because she's behind the projector, that's why.
Maybe. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. We have much better news for you. It's all about pre-K, not about money. So we're going to lighten the mood a little bit here and talk about happy stuff. We've been preparing you for this since the beginning of the school year with reminders in every board report that we'll have some ideas for our Family Resource Center. It's such a large part of our culture and our community in Norwich, and we've had a team of people working together on a committee, conducting a needs assessment, and then analyzing the results to determine if we wanted to move our Family Resource Center from its current location to Moriarty Elementary School. So you can see these are the folks who've worked really hard on spending a lot of time collecting the information, assessing the need, and then coming up with some proposals. So everyone you see on this list has contributed extra hours and thought and brain power to figuring this out. So I appreciate all the extra time everyone has spent together to make this happen. Ooh, there we go. Okay. So the question for our FRC committee is, would our Family Resource Center better serve our community if it was located at Moriarty rather than Mahan? And you'll see in our information following this slide that we'll have a proposal for you. Just to ground us in a little bit of community data, we have a lot of need in Norwich. We have children under 5 experiencing poverty at 20%. We have single parent homes. We have both single mother homes and single father homes at 20 and 8%. We have 44% of our children who qualify for free and reduced lunch. And then you'll see some comparisons here. Some of our families are able to access SNAP, which is food benefit, and in Norwich it's at 19%, where the state and the nation is around 12%. So we're averaging higher than some of our local communities in our surrounding states. 3 and 4-year-olds enrolled in preschool, 44% in Norwich. Connecticut is 60%. We still have a little work to do there. And this is when it really matters, putting this kind of data together, because I can use this data to help us leverage the need for more pre-K slots from the state. So this speaks volumes for us. And our poverty rate is quite high, 15% in Norwich. I've seen it fluctuate between 13 and 15 in the recent couple of years, but in Connecticut it's 10% overall, so we still struggle, and everyone knows that that's something that Norwich overall struggles with. So we took this information and we looked at some of our schools, primarily Moriarty and Mahan. We did some number-to-number comparisons. Moriarty's bigger at 425 students than Mahan at 263. Our pre-Ks are around the same size at the moment. Pre-K at Moriarty has somewhat more room. We can go up to about 72 there. We're at 55 right now, where Mahan has 54 pre-K students. Our special ed population.
Just explain what the difference of the Moriarty program?
Sure. Yeah, the Moriarty program is different than the other preschool classrooms that we have in our district. It's considered a full day, full year program, or you might hear us refer to it as a 12-month program, because it runs all day from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And it was generated to help working families have support for their children with a half an hour travel time before their workday of 8 hours and then a half an hour of travel time after. That was the original intention. Now parents aren't required to work in order to access that program, but it still runs for 10 hours a day because it's helpful to families. Also, that program is not, the instructors are early learning educators, so they're folks who have a lot of experience in early childhood, either through an associate's degree program. Most of them are graduating with their bachelor's by the end of this year, so our program has a lot to offer our kids. And many of our ELEs, our early learning educators, are working towards certification, but they're not there yet. But they act as the primary educator in the classroom. The other difference between our Moriarty program is, as you know, many of you have been to Moriarty, where there are no walls in the wings of that building, and so our preschool is located there in a nicely and beautifully divided space where children do have the containment of a smaller classroom, even though it's in a very large space. So. Pre-K, special ed, we have not too much difference, and that can change on any given day. Moriarty, 19 students with IEPs, and Mahan, 22 students with IEPs. And here we can see our multilingual learners at Moriarty, 25% of our students are identified as ML, and at Mahan, 30%. So we are really neck and neck in a lot of these metrics. Free and reduced lunch, Moriarty 73.9%, Mahan 74. In our special ed population, Moriarty 17%, Mahan at 25. They have the specialized programs that Moriarty does not have, which automatically stacks the number of children with IEPs at that physical location. And one of the things that we just really wanted to impress with this information, that we don't see the difference in the numbers here as we expected to see at Moriarty, but there's a little bit more to the story here. Let me try to, okay. Here's a little bit of our academic data. This is where you start to see the disparate numbers between the two schools. So the table on the left are the SBAC scores. These are children with the English Language Arts SBAC test earned at least a 3, so a 3 or a 4. So in grade 3, you can see that 34% of the students at Moriarty earned a 3 or a 4 on an SBAC test. We know SBAC isn't the end-all to our data analysis for student outcomes by any stretch, but it is a good dipstick measure to get a feel for where some of our needs lie and where we can allocate some of our resources. So, and I won't go through all of the cells in these two tables, but primarily you can tell that Moriarty has somewhat of a need that's greater than Mahan, where the Family Resource Center is currently. The other benefit of Moriarty, and you'll see we'll make the case in a little bit, that Moriarty will be a great place for our Family Resource Center, because when our students come in to the 12-month program at Moriarty, they come in from around the entire district. So if we funnel some of our resources into the 12-month program, they trickle back out into all areas of the district. So that's a really nice option for us to have the FRC at Moriarty.
Could you just briefly touch on the SBAC scores, what the range is from the lowest to the highest?
Ooh, well, the range is a score of a 1, 2, 3, or 4. If you're at a 3, it's considered adequate progress, and 4 is proficient.
4 is the highest?
4 is the highest, yes.
So 1 is the lowest?
1 is the lowest. And if you're scoring a 3, that's pretty good. So we included both of those scores here. But generally, overall, Mahan is a higher performing school when it comes to this very isolated measure, but it does give us a good feel for where we can allocate the resources and how we can get the benefit of funneling them into the 12-month program at Moriarty to then have a kind of a ripple effect into the rest of the district's performance.
So the idea of moving this is to increase scores at Moriarty to make it comparable to the scoring at Mahan.
Well, yes, that's the one phase of it. The second would be that when we take and accept students into our 12-month program, we accept them from all over the district. So in the Moriarty 12-month program, we have students from all of our zone schools. So when we funnel in the resources there now, for instance, last year we added a special education teacher so we can support students better with disabilities and IEPs in the 12-month program, because when they build their skills early, they take those skills and they go back to their zone school, whether it's Stanton, Waquanic, Huntington, any of the other schools, and they leave the 12-month program with more skills and bring them back to all of the schools.
Okay. And I imagine you're going to tell us exactly how that's going to happen.
Yes. I'll turn it over to Zach now. Zach was one of the members of our committee, and he's going to share a little bit with you. Did I skip? I might have skipped. Let me just check this. There it is. Before we turn it over to Zach, we wanted to leave you with some information about the Family Resource Center, because we've done a lot of, part of our needs assessment and data analysis was surveying the community. the school community to see how much they understand what the FRC is. The FRC is very defined by their grant structure. So it has 7 components, and we receive $111,000. All the FRCs across the state receive $111,000 no matter what. But it has some very specific functions, and Cindy Beauregard has been the face of FRC for us. So sometimes you'll say, do you know what the FRC is? And people will say, no, never heard of it. But then if you say, do you know, have you worked with Cindy Beauregard? They're like, oh yes, you know, we know her. She's helped us with food and this and all of these things. So we are going to turn it over to Cindy first so that she can tell us a little bit about each of the 7 components.
Now, is that funding federal or state?
State.
State,
Yep.
so it's not dependent on the whims of what happens in
I'm sure it's all connected somewhere down the line, which worries me, but yeah, for the state. And right now in the legislative session, there was some discussion about some of the reductions, but today we heard that they may have taken those things off the table. Still a little wishy-washy, but for now we're gonna be hopeful.
Hi, everybody. I'm excited to talk a little bit about the FRC, where it's so near and dear to my heart. The FRC, there's 57 FRCs in the state of Connecticut. They're all in an elementary school. Part of the grant is that they're in the front of an elementary school. Our mission is to promote comprehensive community-based systems of family supports and child development services integrated in the public school systems. Programs include, and this is the 7 components that we do, is play and learn groups, which is our play groups that we have on. We have a partnership with the Norwich Rec. We do a play group there on Monday mornings for an hour. And then on Wednesdays, we do the FRC group over at Mohegan Commons Apartments. We do a partnership with them as well. And we're starting a partnership up with Madonna Place on Friday mornings. We're going to be having play groups there. All 3 are at 10 o'clock in the morning to 11. All families are welcome, ages birth through 4. The other component is the parent education and home visiting. That's a parents as teachers program. And it's a program that's set up for kiddos birth through kindergarten. And it's a home visiting program that you go into the home and you work with the families as a family. We do assessments with kiddos. We work with the school and the families together. If the kiddos are in a public school, we support the parents with whatever needs they have as far as foods, clothing, anything. Go to a PPT with them if they need, go to a doctor's appointment. It's anything that a family could use help with or support with. Filling out forms, guidance on where to go for something. And those are home visits, again, that go right through kindergarten. Resources and referrals. We work a lot with community agencies, Madonna Place, UCFS, any agency that's in Norwich. I think Norwich Public Schools has a partnership with, and they work with FRC as well. We do adult ed classroom on Mondays and Wednesdays. The FRC takes the kiddos and goes into a classroom. Usually it's a pre-K classroom. And the adults go into a different classroom and learn English. And we do programming with the littles. And then when the kiddos and the parents come together at the end of the adult class, we do a project together. It might be music and movement. It might be an art activity. It might be reading. We do quality childcare and school readiness programs. I'm on the School Readiness Council. We do a lot of raising reader groups, a lot of community events to promote the school readiness and the Family Resource Center with Norwich Public Schools. Adult education and parenting workshops. I facilitate a number of workshops within Norwich. We do the Circle of Security. We do the fatherhood program is going to be coming to the schools. so that we can have a dad's group, grandparents raising grandchildren. There's before and after school program support. We do a lot with, some sites have their own after school program and before school program. I've always worked in collaboration with the after school program and I always do family monthly events. And a lot of times the after school program will work with me with that. And we make sure that we invite, the whole school is invited. So we do that, and we did support and training for home childcare providers. And now a new one is with pediatricians. They're, through our advocacy meetings and stuff, we've talked about having something set up like in different pediatricians' offices throughout your town, to talk a little bit about the Parents as Teachers program, the home visiting, the introduction to public schools, things like that. So that's that. The home daycare providers, we reach out to them and invite them to our play groups. A lot of times we'll offer to go and do story time at their home daycares. What that does is it encourages families to get to know the public schools and the Family Resource Center by going into these home daycare providers' homes and seeing the kiddos. You leave information. I get to brag about Norwich Public Schools and our preschools and stuff. So it's kind of nice. And then Positive Youth Development, that's a program that we do with, mostly it's the 4th and 5th graders. I work a lot with Deb Kivitz from Bully Busters on that. Right now we're at Waquanic School and Stanton. On Tuesdays we're at Waquanic, and on Thursdays we're at Stanton School. And we work with kiddos that are having kind of a hard time socializing with others, or maybe shy, maybe struggling behaviorally. So they come after school, and we do different community projects with them. It's so fun. Today, we just did all kinds of stuff at Waquanic. But, so that's a little bit about what the 7 components are of the Family Resource Center. There's many more. We do the mobile food pantry once a month. We do Tommy Toys every year. We do coats and hats and gloves. We do Thanksgiving baskets. I think we did almost 80 last year. Thanksgiving baskets. The Tommy Toy Fund, we do signups for that. We're doing the summer 2 weeks at the YMCA camp, where they come and pick up the kiddos at either Stanton or Mahan. At 8 in the morning, they go down to the Mystic Y. It's free. And they stay the whole day, and then they come back at 4:30. And that's free for Norwich kiddos. This year, they're only able to go one week instead of 2, but that's another program that we've instituted. So there's a lot to the Family Resource Center, and thankfully, because of the support of Norwich Public Schools, we just need to get the word out there a little bit more. So that's what we're working on now,
Yes,
is
and
trying
maybe-
to get all that.
And conceptually, it's Family Resource Center, but a lot of the times it's a center without walls. So it's, I think people think it's a place to physically go to, and we're required to have a place for families to physically attend. But you'll see some of our results. Parents want the information virtually, and we can help them understand that you don't have to come to a place to get utility assistance or help filling out a job application. Cindy and her team can
So
go to
even
your-
though it's called center, it's
Yeah.
really a bundle of services that are spread district-wide.
Yes.
We do have at the Family Resource Center, and I really encourage everybody to come visit. We have computers and stuff there for families to come in and use. Today, a parent came in and was looking for an apartment, so she was able to use the computer there. It's
All right, we're a little pressed for
Okay.
time, so I'll give you about
I-
5 minutes.
that's
to
okay. I could go
finish
on forever,
everything up.
Zach will wrap it up with
Yeah.
the summary of our findings.
It's the findings of the FRC committee that we would recommend moving the program from Mahan Elementary to Moriarty for two major reasons. The first being Moriarty is a larger space. It does offer the ability to expand offerings, additional play groups, support, etc. And then the second is really serving the need of the community right now. As we discussed, the metrics are showing that the students that are being served at Moriarty, along with the 12-month early childhood program, would have a larger impact of partnering with the FRC and increasing that partnership at that site. I'm not gonna read it to you in the spirit of time. We did survey families, and again, feedback from them was increasing, more communication about the FRC, offering virtual FRC visits, and we think by, again, moving it to Moriarty, we'll be set up to do that work. And so, with that being said, our next steps are to submit our revisions to the FRC grant by May 1st to include the new location at Moriarty Elementary for the upcoming school year. And then, we do know that the building project is underway, and just we want to retain the flexibility to move the FRC as needed in order to submit, in order to support the school with the most presenting need. We know things change as time goes on, and the FRC really isn't a space, really. It's a center without walls.
Okay, in order to move this, would you need any action by the board?
No, we don't need a vote, just your blessing, and we'll revise the grant as this presentation indicates, and keep our fingers crossed that the state accepts it.
Well, you have my blessing.
Thank you.
You're doing the work, we trust you. Very much.
Great stuff, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And I'll leave these up here if you guys want.
Okay.
I wanted to let everyone know too, that I left off of that, presentation. We also cut 2 grade 2 teachers, so everyone knows 2 grade 2 classroom teachers. And that was due to, small class sizes. So there was a reduction at both Mahan and Quantic. We're talking about, there was maybe 10 and 8 in each grade, so for this, that's first grade. So we did cut 2 classroom teachers too.
So there was a slight dip in the total student enrollment.
For
projected-
grade 1 in those 2,
projected
so
for
grade
next year.
correct.
Okay. All right, that concludes your report.
Yes, sir.
Okay, any questions on any of this for Susan? All right, I'll go to Jamie, Acting Assistant Superintendent.
Okay, I'll try to be speedy here. You all got an email. Okay, you hear me okay? All right, you were in receipt of some math data for our elementary students. Wanted to just promise that we were gonna give you small snippets. I would offer that if you take a look at it, at your leisure, and if you have any questions or concerns about what you're seeing, please feel free to reach out to me. I think if you had a chance to look, you'll note some pretty good progress with our younger aged in particular. Our K1, 2 are making some pretty good strides on staying at grade level. And so we got to keep that momentum up with our later grades. We know that certain concepts trip students up, especially those fractional concepts as they get older, but we're going to continue to work on that. One of the things about our data systems this year, as we talked about previously in board meetings, that we've adopted a pair assessment platform that has really allowed us to have quick data turnaround and allow our teachers to review that. And I did meet with our math instructional, she's instructional coach, but helps with the math area in particular, Lindsay Sheehan, who really took a deep dive in our pair assessment and is starting to, in collaboration with Mike Garber, and how we can use that data to be more informative, looking at student performance over time, looking at question analysis, looking at subgroup performance. So really taking a look at some of those deeper areas. And we're planning on presenting it to our administrators later on the school year during admin retreat because it's really valuable in our work on our data teams. And keeping that with the math theme, a team of us, Susan, myself, Ashley, Ed, Lavoy, and Shaylin Costanis from the middle school, along with Odina Lafreni, our math coach, attended our Alliance Symposium, which focused on advancing secondary math. And as you know, our focus is obviously middle school, but that's kind of looped in there. We listened to some great presenters. One topic that continues to be discussed in that arena is the notion of offering Algebra 1 at the middle school level. As you know, that we are offering it, but we're not replacing it with our 8th grade math, and that has been a theme. Replacing 8th grade math with algebra has actually caused some increases in gaps in skills that impact students later on in high school as well as college. So we know that one of the quotes that he offered us was that the mathematics that most enables our students to be successful in college courses is not high school mathematics, it's middle school mathematics, especially arithmetic, ratio, proportion, expressions, and simple equations. So we are doing that here, and we still are offering Algebra 1 as an additional course, and there'll be more work on that to see the impact. But I think that we are on the right track with this kind of knowledge that we're gaining about that coursework and the trajectory. So we talked about acceleration in math at that symposium. Ensuring that we're not working to constantly fill gaps, but working to keep our students at grade level and instructing them at that grade level. We also talked about grading systems, and as you know, I mentioned that we're working on that in the middle school, so it was a perfect opportunity to kind of hear some ideas that other schools were putting forth. In keeping with that math, and also highlighting the great work that our staff is doing across the district. We had a lot of people in district presenting beyond Norwich Public Schools this month. Our math coach at the middle school level presented at the Atomic Math Conference, focusing on how important it is to have discourse in mathematics. And we know that's really important for our MLL students as well, to increase our level of conversation that happens in a lesson between the students. So that was presented at the Atomic Math Conference. We had Dr. Glover, who is our adult ed director, with one of his teachers present at the annual adult ed conference, where they were talking about their bridge to work with our CNA program and how that provided career pathways for our English learners. In our MLL department, Luz has done some remarkable things of note. She has presented to the CSDE conference, the CAS Leadership Conference, around shifting minds and changing lives, where she presented some EL and ML data through a storytelling lens. Lots of great feedback from participants. And it wouldn't surprise me if she got invited to kind of do a circuit with some of the feedback that she's gotten beyond our state. Lou's also presented some highlights from her coaches who had done some great PD for her teaching staff and schools around the district. So we talked about how that great work can continue. It's beyond our instructional coaches, it's beyond our administrators, but having our teachers also take the reins and use their experience in providing professional learning opportunities. So lots of highlights there. I know that you have a lot of other stuff on your agenda today, so if you have any questions, please let me know.
Amy, and also we've had a really nice partnership with NFA for our math team, has been working a lot with the NFA, so that's been a nice partnership.
Yeah, we talked about at the Alliance Symposium how, it was we're the only pre-K to 8 district. We're kind of that outlier when we get together in these sessions. And most other districts had their, it was middle school and their high schools. And we talked about, our main partner, NFA. Wish we could have them be at the table with us during those times. But this is the first time we've had the Alliance Symposium in a couple of years. So, we can work on that.
That's good to hear, because a friend of mine was a former NFA math teacher, and that would warm the cockles of his heart, believe me. I just want to mention, I noticed a piece here in the adult ed thing where it said, in the adult ed letter, it says the state target for educational functioning level gains is 40%, and Norwich scores 86% across all programs. I mean, that's just absolutely amazing.
Yeah, year after year, I think, where they're showing those kinds of metrics for their performance. And so it's something definitely to be celebrated for sure.
The Prometric testing site being accepted that's a pretty big deal also.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely it is. So well done.
Okay, any questions for Jamie? All right, we'll go on to Lisa, Director of Student Services.
Good evening. Speaking of celebrating, we are celebrating Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month all month long in April, and we are kicking off this a very important month with our Autism Wellness and Resource Fair this Thursday. So it will be here at Kelly Middle School from 5 to 7. We are, I think, at about 30 vendors at this point, which is a large number, and one of those is a student of ours. So it's really exciting to add that into the mix. So we invite all families. Your child does not have to have a diagnosis of autism. There are plenty of vendors that we have that are related resources for all families. So we hope that all will join us. Again, that will be here, which is a change from previous years. In addition to that, some NTA news. We do have our open house and informational night coming up on May 15th. That is for existing students to come in and celebrate NTA, our young adults, and also prospective students and families. So that is also coming up, as well as Mr. Koulos's favorite event, the NTA graduation of our young adults, which will be on June 6th. So we invite you to attend that as well.
That's usually here in the community room, right?
Correct. Yes. And so you do have before you an action item this evening that I will just discuss briefly with you. This is not something new. This is something that we do every year, but it has to do with IDEA and for our submission for IDEA 611 and 619 for our next 2-year cycle, which is our entitlement grant program for the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act. So you have a narrative in your agenda that just describes what the grant is, what the sections are for 611, for example, are for our students ages 3 to 21, and our 619 part of the grant is for preschool. All of this is for students with disabilities, and preschool is for ages 3 to 5. So the narrative goes into the purpose of the grants, this particular grant, why we have the grant, what it is intended to do, which is to support students with disabilities across the district. And there is a preliminary funding amount. Last year we did have, and we're told, I believe in September, that we were going to have less money, of course, and we had to adjust our budget, so you can see what it was adjusted to in the narrative. We also have proportionate share for our parentally placed students, our private school students. I will be meeting with those schools very shortly, at the end of this month actually, to talk about the federal funds that are put aside for them and how we will use those funds. As you know, this is essential funding for us, and the grant will be submitted on behalf of Norwich Public Schools. So there is a little bit more information there for you to take a look at, but I know we're a bit pressed for time, but I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay. Any questions for Lisa? No? All right, Bob, anything to add?
No, I'm going to be really brief. The
Thank you.
25-26 budget I've already talked about, and we're going for 8 o'clock or sooner. The 24-25 forecast is really no change from last month. The range of expectations is the same. We monitor the variable expenses, especially payroll, every 2 weeks when payroll comes out. The administrators of each building have been phenomenal when it comes to doing without. That's kind of hard for me to say, but they're good at not spending money when we're in a budget freeze, so their efforts are greatly appreciated and are very helpful towards this. We're monitoring transportation. Good health is a good thing to wish on everyone, but the amount of sick time that might be used between here and the end of the year could be impactful. Like, for example, if I'm out ill, there's no cost to the district in terms of an additional cost because a sub doesn't come in for me. But if a third grade teacher is out, we'll pay the teacher their sick day and we'll have to find a substitute. So, I mean, I want everyone to have good health regardless, but it has a budget impact. I'll give you one last example how things balance out both in a good way and a bad way. Our facilities department, we have 3 full-time workers out on workers' compensation, and their injuries are such that most likely they won't be here for the rest of the year. So we're saving on 120 hours a week on payroll expense. We're trying to fill that with overtime and substitutes, but there's not enough. So the plus side is we have budget savings. The downside is the schools aren't getting everything done that's needed to be done. Turnover will also play a factor in facilities. For instance, we have a head custodian that gave his notice. He absolutely loved working here. We loved having him. He moved to Brooklyn and it's too far a drive, so he found a position there. So we'll go through the posting process. So the time involved to get a replacement will probably be a month. So we'll be short another 40 hours. So that's budget savings. Good for the budget, bad for the schools. So variable expenses along with the excess cost final payment will impact us. So we hope, and that's not a good way to work on a budget in terms of hope.
So the projections for this year.
Still, the range is.
I see you wearing your black shirt, so it must
Well, this
be
is for budget black night. We,
budget black,
you know,
yes.
we're hoping to be in the
If you
black
come in the red
financially.
shirt, we're
You can be in the red or the black from a budget standpoint, and a budget meeting at the city council is, we'll wear black. We'll be optimistic.
Okay.
Makes sense.
I'm sort of wrong color tonight. Okay. So that concludes the reports. Next, new business. Discussion possible action regarding the non-renewal of certified staff. Do we have the list?
It's in the motion.
It's in the motion.
I have a motion here, yep.
Okay.
Want me to do the motion?
Yeah.
Okay. Motion for the contract of employment of the following individuals not to be renewed for the following year upon its expiration at the end of the 24-25 school year due to budgetary reasons, and that the superintendent of schools be directed to advise such staff in writing of this action. Karen Allers Mercado, Richard Cavett, Michael Flaherty, James Harris, Tyler Longoluco, Patrice Medorina, Ashlyn Nyman, Maria Padazra, Jessica Robertson Clements, Catherine Russo, Caitlin Samuelson, Adramaki Tsarkis, and Taylor Vaughn.
Okay, could I have a second on that? Oh, Chris, okay. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is unanimous, 7-0. Next is the discussion of possible action regarding the 25-27 entitlement grants. These are the IDA grants that,
Yeah.
that we discussed earlier. Could I have a motion on that, please?
I'll read it. Motion for the Board of Education to approve submission of IDA 611 and 619 for the 25 through 27 entitlement grant programs under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Improvement Act, IDA.
Okay, and then could I have a second?
Second.
Kevin seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye is unanimous, 7-0. Next item, unfinished business. This is the action item on the policies that we had for first read last month. 5143, 5114, 5115, 5119, 5122, and 5547. These are all basically minor language changes due to legal changes in the law or, as I say, renaming of certain items. Could I have a motion on that, please?
I make a motion for the board to approve the updates to policies 5143, 5144, 5115, 5119, 5122, and 5548.
Could I have a second, please?
Carleen.
Christine does the second. Any discussion on these? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, it passed unanimously, 7-0. Brings us to committee reports. The budget expenditure, we concluded our business on that. The ad hoc budget, the city manager just gave his budget last night, so those meetings will be scheduled between ourselves and city council. City council will schedule those. If anyone could remind me who was on that ad hoc? John is,
Yep.
Chris is,
I
okay.
don't remember if I am. I was last year and the year before. I mean, I was.
Yeah, you're probably on that too.
You're on it again.
Like it or not.
Yep, I'm on.
And Kevin too, okay. Yeah, I think we had 4, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, and I sit in as a ex officio.
So you know, the city manager just dinged my phone. I think it was a hint for us to get going, to say, just call me.
Turn them back.
Wait.
We'll ding him.
Yeah.
Okay, negotiations. So the negotiations are underway with the administrative assistants. We have a meeting, I believe, on the 21st. School building committee, do you want to fill us in, Christine, on that?
Well, I'll give a quick synopsis. The bids, they received all the bids from interested contractors in building our new schools. You know, of course, starting with Stanton, Greenville. And the bids were all opened and they, except for a few contractors that they have to do scope reviews with, the contractors have been picked, for the most part. We still don't have a groundbreaking date, because they needed to contact all the companies that were chosen, that we voted on, and let them know, and then now we'll be moving towards a date. So anxiously awaiting.
Right, but the main
Groundbreaking.
contractors for excavation, foundation,
most of
concrete
them.
and steel have all been
I don't
picked.
have the full list here, but the steel, the big things, the steel, you know, the big things. So we can get started. They're not so worried about landscaping right now, you know, and
Yeah,
things like
painting,
that.
tiling, or,
Millwork hasn't been decided upon, but the cores of the buildings have been decided upon.
so
So,
we're proceeding, and
It's
in the,
moving, finally, we're moving.
and we're in design phase for the next phase for Moriarty and Uncas.
So, and hopefully maybe by the end of the summer or the beginning of the school year, we'll actually have pictures that we can put up at the schools so people can start get an idea of what we've been working on.
Okay. Greg, you want to touch on transportation?
Yeah, the Transportation Committee met on March 17th. The minutes are there on board docs for anybody to look at, but here are the very important points. It was reiterated that safety inspections of various bus stops are still being done. And, you know, we're still taking all, I don't wanna say complaints, but any messages from the community or people about our bus stops or transportation are still being handled very professionally and very promptly by Maria Perillo. We discussed the snow walker policy, the policy of providing buses to the students who live within a mile and a half of the school for the months of January to March. This year, that costs approximately $47,000. It would cost about $37,200 to run these buses through the end of the school year, and about $50,000 to do that for the same period next school year. There was a unanimous consent that we would discontinue that for the remainder of this school year and return to talk about this later for doing something similar next school year. It was also unanimous consent that we would bring this to the policy committee to talk about our current policy to make sure that that matches up and aligns with our practice in the district for providing transportation.
And along those lines, I just heard today that sunset will be at 7:30 on the 13th of April. And by May 10th, it'll be 8 o'clock at night. So the days are getting much longer.
So I just wanna make sure that
Yes.
so the transportation committee will revisit the snow walkers policy in the fall
Correct.
next year. Okay. Making sure.
Policy, anything pressing on policy, Kevin?
No.
Okay, back to Greg for IDCS.
Highlights of, for me, of the most recent IDCS meeting, they're doing a lot of stuff with extracurriculars right now. If you look at fourth grade plus, you have about 2/3 of students who are participating in either track, which was out on the track a little while ago, or volleyball has been very popular. There's new clubs that are being started that are doing very, very well. Each grade level is doing a lot of amazing things in terms of putting on shows and doing service learning projects for hospitalized children in St. Vincent de Paul and immigrant families. There's a lot of really good stuff going on that I thought would just be worth mentioning. There's a jazz play performance on Friday at 1:30, if anybody'd like to attend, and the annual Trash and Fashion Show on April 24th at 5:30, which is very cool if you have never been. They approved their educator diversity plan, and the finance committee met tonight to do a budget workshop on next year's budget. So I don't have a lot more information about that yet.
Okay, and then Learn?
The Learn report is also there in the board docs. I'm not gonna say much about that besides to say you can read it, it's very well presented.
Okay, and I'll give the brief ones on the NFA liaison. Last meeting was their March board appreciation meeting, so they didn't start the meeting till about 40 minutes late, so I attended very little of it because I had the school building committee afterwards. Their main concerns are budget as always and enrollment. So their budget seems to be on track, and their enrollment numbers, they're very pleased with the enrollment numbers from Norwich. But they are working on getting enrollment from the smaller towns, like especially Voluntown. I don't think they have anyone attending from Voluntown this year. Maybe 1 or 2 students.
Are they going to Griswold instead?
Yeah, Wheeler, no, what's the one, the other one, the Woodstock too, I think.
That's a trip.
Okay, and then the foundation, our winter grants were dispersed. We dispersed 8 winter grants for a total distribution of about $2,500. We had requests for 4180, and since 2011, the past 14 years, the foundation has contributed $133,500 to Norwich Public Schools, to the classrooms. Okay, additional reports are in your packets, budget, personnel, and enrollment. And brings us to executive session. John, if you can read that motion.
Pursuant to Connecticut General Statute 1-200, members of the Board of Education move to go into executive session for discussion of possible appointment of an assistant superintendent. The board may invite Superintendent Susan Lassard and Acting Assistant Superintendent Amy Bender to participate in some or all of the executive session discussion.
Okay, yeah.
I will second.
We're going into private session, so everyone has to leave. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's pretty good. Make their son sit through that whole
Yeah,
thing.
Lisa, you can go.
I'm sitting here like,
This is like, I'm out of here.
I don't know what's happening over here.
You got your money. See you later.
Don't have to ask her twice to leave.
Well, I had to be, I felt like I was so quick that I was too quick. I say every time we need a
We still love you,
babysitter,
man.
so we can go to Celebration of
Okay.
Life tomorrow. I say that's our,
Yes.
that's our date days, as we go to
Right.
Celebration of
It's,
Life.
okay,
I have a motion to read.
no,
Nope.
It's 7:39, we're coming out of executive session. No votes were taken in executive session. And I believe, John, you have a motion to read.
Move that the board authorize the superintendent of schools to extend Jamie Bender as acting assistant superintendent effective July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026, and move further that the superintendent be authorized to negotiate, finalize, and execute on behalf of the board an employment contract with Ms. Bender, acting assistant superintendent, for the 25-26 school year based on the terms discussed in executive session held on April 8th, 2025.
And could I have a second on that motion?
I second it.
And a second by Chris. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. It is unanimous, 7-0. The motion to adjourn.
I'll motion to adjourn.
Second,
Carleen will second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, it is unanimous. We're done, folks.
Mark, do we meet in June or